Dear students, we are here for another presentation on international marketing. I am from Center for Management Studies, Dibrugarh University. We'll be looking at a topic which is very, very prominent, and let us try to understand what the various importance and significance this topic has in the study of international marketing. So let us give a heading to it, and I have decided that we should start with a framework for international marketing. So that means it's basically an outline which will help us to understand the overall picture concerning international marketing. So let us go ahead. Now when we look at the framework, the first and the most important aspect of this framework is the decision to enter into an international market. When we think, or when a business firm will think that we should go ahead and entering into a new business relationship, going ahead by moving across our geographical boundary. That means we will be moving towards a foreign country, a country which will give us opportunities, and with opportunities a lot of risk will come in. And along with that, along with the risk and the opportunities, we must understand and we must be able to balance that how we can move ahead by securing a target which basically a business can consider it to be a profit. With the objective of profit in the back of our head or in the back of the mind, we will move ahead. The decision to enter into a foreign market. So once the decision has been taken, at this particular point of time, it is very, very crucial that we set our objectives clear. Once the objectives are clear, we can go ahead and we can actually try to find out that what will be the resources that we will get in that foreign country, and whether our resources in our domestic country is supportive or not, whether it will be feasible for the firm, for the company to move ahead and do business in the foreign country. Now if we look at setting the objectives, we will have to think on certain aspects. What will be the aspects that we will have to think on? Say for example, what are the current resources? What is the capital? Whether we are sufficient enough in finance, whether we have the human resources, whether we will be able to take help from various consultancy firms which might be there in that foreign land, whether the people will accept us, whether the products and the services that we want to market, whether those products and services will be accepted by the people of that land. And if it will be accepted, then what are the things that we should be concentrating on? What kind of segment that we must take on? What type of people, what type of customers we will have for our product? Because it will be a very much heterogeneous market. People will be having different characteristics, the consumers will be having different characteristics, and along with different characteristics, they will be exhibiting different behavior. And we cannot move ahead until and unless we understand what they want, what kind of behavior they will exhibit, what kind of attitude, what kind of lifestyle they will exhibit. So we need to concentrate on setting the objectives very, very clear. And once we understand that what are the resources available in our land, in the domestic country, what we have in present, and what will be the resources that are going to be made available, and whether those resources will be helpful for doing the business or not. So if we have certain objectives in hand, we'll also be able to concentrate on the amount of profit that we might end up generating in the end. So all these things are very, very crucial. But only setting the objectives will not be the end. We will have to move ahead in that particular framework. And the next important that today we will be focusing on is market identification, evaluation and selection. So when we try to say that identifying certain characteristics of the market, evaluating the characteristics or the factors that are responsible for making a decision or having an impact on the decision of the management, and we will also have to select a proper channel to target those customers, because until and unless we identify and we know that whom to sell the product to, until and unless we evaluate the process of how to market and whether the country or the countries that we are going to sell to will be accepting our product or not, we will not be able to have a analysis where we can understand that yes, this is the country where we should move ahead. So at the end, one will have to select the particular country that they want to go and sell their product in. So we are looking at market identification, evaluation and selection. So this will be our core area which we will be discussing today. But along with that, since it's a framework, I must tell you that there are some other steps to it, and those steps are entry mode decisions. That means how will you enter into a particular market? Means once you have thought of and done a good research on that particular market, you will now be very, very sure that yes, we should go ahead and do our bit. But you need to understand that whether you will be going through a joint venture, whether you will be opening up a subsidiary, whether you will be giving your clients a franchisee, whether you will be going for licensing, whether you will be going for piggybacking, and there will be a lot of different ways of entering a new market, which I think at the end I will give you a glimpse of. And the next important and very important point is marketing mix decisions. Now when I say marketing mix decisions, in that whole framework you will see that whatever hard work that needs to be done and that the people will be seeing it will be only through this marketing mix. So we are looking at price, we are looking at product, we are looking at place, and we are looking at communications, we are looking at promotion. Those 4 P's has always been so common for us in the study of marketing management as well. But what we are looking at today is a bit different, because we will be entering a new market and we must be able to understand that what kind of product will be feasible for those customers to accept, and what kind of price points we should set so that these consumers become our customers. And along with that, we must also be able to understand that what kind of communications strategies that we need to adopt. Maybe it may be related to advertising, it might be related to personal selling, it might be a simple issue like publicity, it might be managing the public relations, and it might also be personal selling. Now when we look at so many different aspects, each of these small sub points has a very important role to play in international marketing. So the communications becomes one of the very major portions, because the product we already had, we already have it in our own country. We know that the product is successful. The price also we have for our own domestic customers. But whether it will be suitable for the customers of a foreign land is something that we will have to work on. And the price that comes along with that particular product. Now when we are looking at that particular product, we must also be able to place the product in the right place. What kind of wholesalers we will have, what kind of partnerships we will have is very, very important. Partnerships with our distributors, with our CNF agents. What kind of partnerships we will have with the retailers, or the point of sale, where from which point our product will be going on to the hands of the customer. So until and unless we have a very rigid, along with rigid, the flexibility also needs to come so that it accepts what the customers provide as a feedback. And along with feedback, the whole system of marketing mix needs to work together. So a feedback from the customers will ultimately help us to understand what kind of marketing mix has been successful. Along with that, we need to also take care of how will you implement the decisions for international marketing. If the decisions that we take cannot be implemented, then there will be a lot of issues that will come from there on. So we need to understand that what we will take, what decision we will take, and how it needs to be implemented. The implementation must come as and when we decide on a particular aspect of the product. It might be related to price, it might be related to product, it might be related to communications, it might be related to distribution. Only implementing a particular idea won't help. So we will go towards reviewing the whole process of international marketing where we are currently in operations. So reviewing the system, reviewing the processes, reviewing the steps that we have taken, the decisions that we have made, those reviews will help us to make our system very, very effective. But once we review a particular process, certain issues will generally come up. It might be beneficial and it might be detrimental to our interest as well. But somehow we will have to introspect and we will have to consolidate our operations. We'll have to take some constructive decisions if it is detrimental. And we might have to even sometimes close down a particular process that we have started. But if it is constructive, it will definitely be beneficial, and we must understand that the operations that we will carry on after the review process will generally be helpful for us. It might be related to different aspects of the marketing mix. Say for example, if a product is not able to suit the needs of the customers, then we need to understand that why that particular product has gone down in sales. For example, when the surf detergent was sold in Japan, the Japanese people didn't accept it. Why they didn't accept it? Because they used to use that surf detergent in a washing machine. Now every time you use surf in a washing machine, it will not give you that kind of effectiveness. Because in India, most of the people used to use it with their hands. They used to take a tub and they used to wash their clothes there. But in Japan it was not like that, and they started neglecting it. So the company came up with an idea that let us not simply sell surf, let us make it a detergent which will be effective inside the washing machine. So the magic word came up. Now a lot of issues like that you will find in day-to-day life. Even if you look at various issues related to Kellogg's, when we say Kellogg's, what word comes to our mind? What object comes to our mind? Of course, it will be cornflakes. But when we are looking at cornflakes, the way we consume cornflakes is very, very different to that of the Americans. Because we use cornflakes with hot milk, but the Americans will generally like to have it with cold milk. So the crispiness remains. The same crispiness cannot be promised by Kellogg's. Initially what it did in India, later on they understood that yes, Indians are consuming the Kellogg's cornflakes in a different way. So we must be able to introspect. So these are the consolidation of certain operations that the marketer has to think of. When they are going on to international marketing, a lot of factors needs to be considered. We'll be discussing today. So let us go into identification, evaluation and selection, because for today this is the most important aspect. The framework, I think it is quite clear for you. Now let us try to understand what are the various approaches that one can take to identify or pick up a particular country. Now if we look at one single approach, which will generally be something like reactive approach. Now when someone is providing you a reaction only because he is also getting some kind of response, or somebody is asking him to do something. So if someone is being asked, he will generally respond. That response depends on the stimuli. So what we are looking at here is someone will react and someone will respond to an upcoming opportunity in a foreign country. So you are looking at small SMEs. You are looking at basically the small and medium enterprises, where you will see a lot of these enterprises moves and expresses their opinions only when some opportunity comes in front of them. It is not that they have the intention beforehand. The intention will come only after they see the opportunity. So basically the response is unintended. They didn't have the intention to do business or go into the foreign country, but since there lies an opportunity, they will move ahead. So this is basically seen as a reactive approach. But the most important one is the proactive approach. We are looking at a systematic proactive approach, which is research based. And when I'm saying research based, it means that proper data has been collected, proper study has been done, interaction with the customers, the dealers, the retailers, and all the stakeholders at play are being taken, and some analysis is being done, some comparison study is being done, and the outcome is carefully noted before taking a decision. So this is quite clear that when we are looking at identifying a particular market, we are looking at proactive approach. But where from that data will come? Comes from various sources. Sources like World Trade Organization. So if you go to the World Trade Organization's website, you will see a lot of codes, ITC, HS codes. And these codes are representing a lot of different products. And you will get all the details regarding rates, tariffs, you will get in that website. But along with WTO, we also need to take care of UNCTAD, World Bank, DGCINS, and also the Reserve Bank of India. But these are not the end, because country to country it will differ, because government institutions have a lot of data. They collect a lot of data, and this data is published on their websites. And this information can be utilized by marketers, by companies, firms, to understand how competitive the market is, how viable the market is, how feasible the market is, and whether we will be able to sustain in that market, and what kind of profitability we are going to get, whether it's a short term, whether it will be a long term. All these things will be looked at. Now basically, going into some depth of the proactive approach, we will see that the research approach has to check for availability of data. If the data is available, the information, if it is available, you can do a lot of analysis with that information. You can gain a lot of knowledge with that information. It will help you in decision making. But only availability of the data will not help you. We also need to think of reliability. That means how reliable the data is, whether the respondents have given proper data, accurate data. If they somehow have not disclosed the information correctly, then ultimately it will have an impact on your research. And with reliability, the comparability is also very, very important, because the data that you have, it needs to be compared, and it also needs to be validated. Whether what were the objectives, whether the objectives have been met, what kind of methodology you have adopted, whether it's a right methodology or not. Now we'll go for the research design. When someone goes for the research design, he will basically be thinking of whether it will be an exploratory research, whether it will be a descriptive one, whether it will simply monitor the cause and effect relationship. But in businesses, you will see a lot of businesses are doing cause and effect study. What were the variables? They try to identify them. They try to solve the problems. That what caused this particular issue? How do we solve it? So basically you will have to come across a particular design, a procedure, a process through which you will move ahead. If the process is not correct, if the procedures are not right, you are bound to face problems. You will end up giving false information. And the decisions that you will make will be detrimental to the interest of the business. But again, there will be a lot of things that we will have come across along with that particular procedure. We'll have to think about collecting the data, we'll have to think about analyzing the data, evaluating the data, and ultimately we'll have to interpret the data. Interpretation in a proper way. It might be through various representations, diagrammatic representations, but it has to give a clear picture to the management. Because the management might not have a understanding of various calculations that you have made. So they needs to be presented, the data needs to be presented in a visual manner so that the management understands, so that the top management can take correct decisions on that visual representation. And there will also be a country evaluation, cross-country evaluation, because country to country comparison is very, very important. Until and unless you do a cross-country evaluation, you won't be able to understand at which country we should move first. And along with that, you will also have to think of the tools, the techniques for country evaluation and selection. Because ultimately you will have to select. That is the basic idea behind this identification, evaluation and selection. You will have to select. Now how do you do the country evaluation? How do you select a particular country which is of your interest? So basically we'll have to first scan the global economic environment. So we'll have to scan it. Of course the sources I have already mentioned, that how you will get the data. Those source of information has to be clear for you. I have already told you that it's about WTO, UNCTAD, various government institutions. In India itself you will get Reserve Bank of India publishing a lot of data. So all these institutions are important. Even export promotion councils, even commodity boards, and a lot of these institutions can be helpful for even banking, financial institutions. But when we are talking about global economic environment, we are looking at population, we are looking at income, etc. If the population size is something that is of our interest, we can. If the income level suits our price of the product, we can. So a lot of decisions that needs to be taken at this particular point of time. So there needs to be a proper scanning of the economic environment, the global economic environment. A proper scanning of the global economic environment. The next important point will be assessing the market potential. Now when you assess the market potential, you are basically looking at the market size, how big it is. What are the estimated growth rates? Now of course again these data will come from various sources that I have already discussed. Then evaluating the country competitiveness. You are looking at the global competitive index. We are looking at government institutions. We are looking at various tariffs and non-tariff rates. We are looking at the infrastructure of a particular country. We are looking at higher education, health, financial markets, how competitive it is, how significant it is, how sophisticated it is, and whether we are, as a country, they are technologically savvy or not. Whether innovation is being encouraged or not, whether creativity is being encouraged or not. So there are a lot of aspects that we can find if we go towards evaluating the country competitiveness. So competitiveness considers these particular factors: GCI, government institutions, tariff rates, non-tariff, infrastructure, health, education, financial market, technology, innovation, and so on and so forth. But along with that, you will also have to take care of the business environment. We will have to access the business environment. So the next point is assessing the business environment. We are looking at ease of doing business. So this particular word has been heard by a lot of you people. It is going on in the news from the last few years. Ease of doing business. India has also improved its ranking. And whether it will be able to sustain or not, that is again a big question mark, because we have not moved that far. We have to improve in a lot of areas. But what are the things that we'll have to consider is also very, very important. Say for example, a person or a group of persons wants to start a company. So how easy is for them to just take a decision like starting a business, whether with a tangible product or an intangible service. Whom they will employ, whether their resources, human resources are available in that country or not. Whether you can support that country and you can send people from your own country or not. What are the various labor laws? Whether it is supportive or not for that particular process. Now along with that, you will also have to go for registration, because registering a property for maybe for a factory, maybe for your office, all these things needs to be jotted down. Then again, you will have to think of licensing, whether the process of procuring a license is easy enough. What are the hurdles, what are the constraints? Less the constraints, more easier will be for the business to set up and start and move ahead. So basically we are talking about document processing. So this document processing needs to be very, very clear, thorough, and also simple. More complex is the process, more difficulty the businessman will face. But along with that, at the end, a business might also think of closing the business. So if the business thinks that I need to close down my business, I cannot operate. So if you make him liable to pay for a lot of issues, lot of objects, then he will not think of starting the business in the beginning itself. So closing a business also needs to be easier for a firm or for a business, for a company. And of course, we will look at another very important point here while evaluating a country, is that country assessment for services location. That means what are the various services that a firm can get or will get when it enters the foreign country. Now if you look at India itself, India has been one of the pioneering countries in the world in providing various kinds of services. You look at the people, the citizens of India, you will see that they are quite comfortable in conversing or while dealing with a lot of subjects or topics, even languages. They represent different cultures. And if we look at the IT industry itself, the BPO industry itself, we will see that it has been a blooming affair for India. And the business also needs to access the various problematic factors for doing business. Because a country might look very attractive, a country might look very feasible, the financial markets might do wonderfully good. But if the political system is not stable, if there are many chaos in the local areas, there are many civil disturbances, then the business cannot flourish. They must have the upper hand in running a particular business. Of course, a business needs to abide by the government laws, but along with government laws, if there are any kind of undue influence from the government itself, then it becomes difficult. So we are looking at assessing the problematic factors for doing business. So these are a few issues that one would like to consider when he goes for country evaluation. So these are the points. Now we will look at the various tools for evaluation and selection. Now when we are looking at the various tools, we are basically looking at a particular method or a technique which we can adopt. It might be a simple model as well. So we are looking at trade analysis. This is the very basic and very fundamental in evaluating a particular country. So how do you do it? By looking at a simple equation here. Market size equals to production plus imports minus exports. So this is a simple equation by which you can look at the exports and imports of a particular country, and you can determine the market size by doing a analysis with that. Now where from the data will come, that I have already disclosed, the various sources of or the government institutions which a country has. So you can look at that data and you can come up with an idea that whether I should go forward or not. Now the second important tool that I found out here is opportunity risk analysis. That means there will be opportunities for the business, there will be risks for the business, and you will have to do that analysis between opportunity and risk. So what will be the opportunities that a business will get? Market size, growth, competition, operational cost, marketing efficiency, tax rates. Now when we are looking at these opportunities, it might be sometimes up and down, but these opportunities are only considered to compare various countries. It is not simply done for one single country. It is used, this whole data is being used to compare several countries together. So the countries will be compared based on opportunities which takes these important points, like what will be the market size. A country will look at these important opportunities, first being the market size, how big it is, what are the growth rates that the country will exhibit, what are the various competition, how the competition is going on in that particular market, whether it will be viable for us to move ahead, what will be our competitors, what will be our substitutes, whether we will be able to survive, what will be the operational cost. If you go to country A, what will be the operational cost? If you go to country B, what will be the operational cost? What will be the operational cost when you go to country C? So all these things can be compared, which ultimately will also mean that you can understand what will be the marketing efficiency, how productive it will be. But it will also be important for us to understand that what are the tax rates in those countries, and if we understand and compare these rates, we will have a better understanding. Now along with that, we also need to do a comparative analysis of various countries depending on the risk. So the risk factors will include political, commercial, economic and operational. So every country needs to be evaluated based on the political stability, commercial aspects and the issues, economic viability, how the economy is behaving, whether it is feasible for the business, and what will be the operational constraints. So if a country gets a good score in this, you can consider that country and you can enter into a relationship through international marketing. That means you can start your business there. So this opportunity risk analysis is very, very important when you are doing a comparative study. You are doing a cross-country check. Which country gets a bigger pie of our share? And then let us go into another method which I think most of you might have heard of, which is growth share metrics, or you can say BCG metrics. If you remember, Boston Consulting Group, they have come up with this particular strategy. It generally helps a business in case of exports. So we are looking at various factors in 4 quadrants. If you can remember, these 4 quadrants will have stars, question marks or problem child, cash cows and dogs. And when we are looking at the quadrant, we will be looking at the market share and the growth. Say for example, if there is high growth and there is high market share, we are basically looking at stars. If we are looking at low growth but high market share, we are looking at cash cows. If we are looking at high growth rate, low market share, we are looking at question marks. These question marks are actually problem childs, and the management has to come up with some good idea about how they will deal with this problem child, because until and unless they are dealt with carefully, they will simply move out of business. So they need to be looked upon, they need to be targeted well, and proper steps needs to be taken so that they become stars. High growth rate, high market share. And we are also looking at underperformers, which are regarded as dogs. So they have a low market share, low growth rate. Basically, the company can make a decision like setting them aside or divesting or closing them down. But the only generator of cash is cash cows. The only generator of a lot of money is the cash cows, because they are less problematic, because cash cows already have the market share. Of course, the growth rate is slow, but it means that they have already become well known among the customers. People know about them, and less number of investments needs to be done in this case. So this is basically how someone will have to come up with the idea of evaluation. So once you get a good score out of these processes, you can go for selection. So we are looking at the tools which will help us to evaluate and then select a particular country. So we have only discussed these three methods, but there are more. But I find that these three are the most significant, and that's why I have taken up for today's discussion. So again, let us go on to segmentation, because segmentation is something that we cannot skip. In the beginning itself, I have told you the market is very, very heterogeneous. There are many dissimilarities that exist, and for the marketer it is very difficult to identify that whom I should approach. So basically this segmentation is being done. So heterogeneous groups are being converted to homogeneous groups or homogeneous subgroups. So basically why we will do it? We will do it because we want to specifically identify which segment we can satisfy, which segment will accept our product more, with whom we can derive the profits. And of course, when we think about that, we'll have to think about the basis. And that's why we'll try to focus on a few of the important bases. Say for example, geography. Now the region, the state, the country, or a particular area of a particular state. Now when you find out those small areas and it has certain kind of similarity, we can group them together. So geographic segmentation, that means based on area. It might be relevant for a company to distribute a particular product, and for them to make services available in that particular area might be very feasible, very manageable. That's why you will pick up some important areas. Say for example, a company like a four-wheeler might select some cities to market their products first. And then comes the demographic factors, where, as we all know, it relates to income, the gender, the age, and etc. Then comes the psychographic profiles. That means a segmentation based on the psychographic profiles, looking at the lifestyle, the attitude, the self-concept, the value systems that exist in a particular society. These will help us to understand and segment the market in a proper way. But along with that, the international marketer also needs to think of market opportunity. Where, which area, which segment the opportunity lies, which segment is more attractive, and then you can select. Then you can select a particular area. So market opportunity along with market attractiveness. Hence we have come to the end of today's session. Let us go through a summary and let us try to capitalize on the issues that we have discussed today. So at the initial start itself, we have learned that how to identify a market. It can be unintentional, it might be research based. That means you have an intent to go forward. Then we have discussed about various factors on evaluation. We have discussed the factors on analysis, what things to be analyzed, what things needs to be compared. We also talked about various factors related to accessibility, the barriers, the environmental factors, which is very uncontrollable. And then selection of important segments. That means which segment is more attractive, more profitable, more easily approachable. And once you have decided on that, you will have the idea that which market will be profitable. So profitability of the market will come up and you will be able to select and move forward. But these are the steps, or we can say that it's a small ways of moving ahead with identification, evaluation and selection. But there are more to it. As I have already told you about the whole framework of international marketing, the next biggest step, we will have to look at entry mode selections. So how do you do it? It is based completely on your resources that are at your disposal and how you would like to move ahead, whether the government is helpful enough, whether you have a business partner in that particular country where you can move ahead with a joint venture, whether you know that there is an already established distribution network and you can think of going for piggybacking, or you can look at opening up a subsidiary to just minimize on the tax rates and thereby gain significant benefit in doing international marketing. Thank you, students. I hope you had a wonderful time today. Thank you all.